Hello everyone, welcome to the 100 Days of Coding Challenge Day 18. My name is Josh and today we are going to start with formal parameters, actual parameters and the return statement. And we will also be learning about the types of parameters. So in the last video we learned about what is a function and what are user defined functions. So in today's video we are going to learn about formal parameters, actual parameters and so on. So let's start with it. So the formal parameters, also known as parameters, the definition is that these are the variables declared in the function's definition or the function header. They act as placeholders or slots for the incoming data. Actual parameters, also known as arguments, these are the actual values or variables passed to the function when it is called or executed. And the connection is that the actual parameters are basically copied into the formal parameters during the function call in the call by value. We'll talk about call by value and call by reference. So let's move on to the return statement. So the definition is that the return statement is used to terminate the execution of a function and send a value back to the calling code. When the return statement is executed, the function immediately stops. The value specified after return is sent back and the program flow resumes from where the function was called. The default return value, if a function in Python does not explicitly use a return statement, or if it uses return without a value, like just return, then it implicitly returns the value none. We know that none is a special data type in Python. So in this image, we can see that this is the function header and this is the function definition. We can see these two, the purple ones are the parameters a and b, and over here in the function call, the 10 and 20 are the arguments that have been passed on. So in this example I have created, here is the function header, p and q are the formal parameters, and over here a is equal to 10 and b is equal to 20 and c is equals to sum of a comma b. Basically sum is basically this user defined function. So a and b are the actual parameters, as this is a function call statement and this is call by reference. We will move on to it soon. So let me explain this code a bit. Over here this function basically inputs two variables p and q, oh my bad, p and q, and then returns the sum of p and q, p plus q, which is returned. So this return statement moves on the exact result of p plus q in this variable c. So when we print c, we get the result 30, which is the sum of p and q. And these p and q values were these p and q values came from this function call statement, which sends a and b. So 10 and 20 was sent and return the sum of 10 and 20, which is 30. So let's move on to call by value and call by reference. So I have a function over here, add nums, which has two parameters a and b, and the result is equals to a plus b, and I'm returning the result. So this is call by value, where I am in the function call statement, I am passing the actual Python objects or the value. Like this is called call by value. I'm passing the actual value or actual Python objects, which is 5 and 10, and then I'm printing it. So, and this one here is the call by reference, because c and d are the variables which refer to the value 5 and 10. So this is known as call by reference. Let me run the code and show. So yeah, here you can see that both the codes are giving the same output, which is the sum of 5 and 10. So the first one is call by value and the second one is call by reference. So now moving on to there's an important concept that I have to explain over here. Over here, the thing is, in call by reference, this is a bit twisted because you know that Python has mutable and immutable data types. So it works slightly different for mutable and immutable types. For immutable, there is no change. It works perfectly as the one that is worked here, because 5 and 10 and C and D are basically integers. So C and D are immutable types. So let's see the mutable data type first. So over here I'm accepting a list in the function definition, and I'm appending 1 to the list. So and then I'm printing the list inside the function L1. So I will get the updated list over here. And just before calling this function, we know that Python is an interpreter. So here is the function call statement. So yeah, here is the original list. So over here, this is the original list that I have created, and I am printing it before calling the function. And then I'm calling the function, and then I'm printing the list again after calling the function. So let's see what happens. Will the list change or will it remain the same? So yes, here we can see that the list before calling the function, it was 2 comma 5, as we can see over here. But when the list went inside the function, 1 has been appended at the end, as we can see over here. And then when I call the list, when we are back in the function, the main function, it is returning 2, 5 and 1. So this is what the mutable objects, this is what the catch is, that if we are passing a mutable object in call by reference, so since object is a mutable data type, so the changes made inside the function will also reflect in the main function. Moving on to the immutable function, that was like perfectly the exact same way that we expected. So over here we have, just a second, over here we have over here we have n is equal to 1, which is the number, and I'm printing the number before calling the function, and then I'm calling the function and then printing the number after calling the function. Over here in the function I'm accepting that number and I'm incrementing it by 5, and then I'm printing the number. So basically this n should be, don't be confused between this n and this n. We know that the scope of this n is basically global because it's in the main function, and the scope of this n is only for this function fun immutable. As we can see in the code over here, that the number before calling the function was 1, and the number inside the function is 6. But again, when we come to the main function, the value is 1 because this n had the global scope, like this n had only the scope up to the function. So the number after calling the function n prints 1 only. Since n is an integer, which is an immutable data type, so it is the same way as we expected over here. Whereas for mutable types, the object changes in the main function as well. Okay, so now let's move on to the three types of arguments: positional arguments, default arguments, and keyword arguments. So positional arguments are the most basic kind of arguments, where like the arguments, by the way, these are the arguments, the ones which are in the function call. So 1, 2 and 3, in position arguments, the first position will be, the first argument will be given to the first parameter, the second will be given to the second parameter, and the third argument will be given to the third parameter. So when I run this code, let me comment out this. So when I run this code, I have to save it. So here A is 1, A is 1, B is 2, and C is 3, as you can see over here. So these are positional arguments. And now let's move on to the default arguments, and I'll comment out this. So the default arguments, here the arguments are by default given an value, like a is equal to 5, b is equal to 10, and c is equal to 20. Here the parameters have a default value, and that is used in such cases where there is no argument given to these parameters. So as you can see that fun1 which this function, it contains 3 parameters, but there's only one argument given. So in that case, it will assign this 2 to A, and the rest 2 parameters will use their default values. So that means when I run it, let me comment out this region. Yep, when I run it, A is being assigned 2, B is assigned its default value, which is 10, and C is assigned 20, as we can see over here. A is 2, B is 10, and C is 20. So this is what default arguments do. And this 2, and like if I say 3, and if I save this code, and if I run it, so we can see that B has been assigned the value 3. So basically all these parameters are being positionally applied to the these arguments are being positionally applied to the parameters. So 2 and 3 are applied to A and B, and C, there is no parameter for C, so C uses the default value. So these are default arguments. Now moving on towards the keyword arguments, I'll just comment out this region. Keyword arguments, over here in the function call, we are specifically assigning, we are telling the function that C, this, like the C parameter has to be assigned this value, and the A parameter has to be assigned this value, and the B parameter has to be assigned with 1. So we are keyword, like this is the keyword. Keyword means that we are using the same name as a parameter as an argument, and we are telling the Python that I want you to assign this value to this parameter in your function. So let's see how it works. As you can see, C is being given the value 3, so C is 3. A is being given the value 10, so A is 10, and B has been given the value 1, so B is 1. So this is what keyword arguments is all about, and these all are the 3 types of arguments: keyword, positional, and default arguments. So let's meet in the next video. Till then, bye bye.